retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the cold hard hatred.
The Lady of the Dunes now has a name after almost 50 years. She was 37-year-old Ruth Marie Terry. Now they have found a link between her and a man that could have possibly been a serial killer. There is some shocking developments in this case, so come join me at the Murder She Shed for a vintage case that may finally be solved. This is the place we honor the dead right from my little she shed, and my name is Holly. On a July morning in 1974, a 12-year-old girl playing with a neighborhood dog at Race Point Dunes in Provincetown, Massachusetts, came up on a disturbing sight after the dog became excited and led the little girl straight to the naked body of Ruth Marie Terry, known for 48 years as the Lady of the Dunes. The woman was young and white with pink painted nails and a glittery hairband holding back her auburn-colored ponytail. The left side of her head had been completely crushed, and she had been nearly decapitated. She lay face down, and her head rested on a pair of folded Wranglers and a blue bandana. Her hands were missing, and in place of them were piles of pine needles. Some of her teeth had also been extracted. Investigators determined that the head injury was caused by a military entrenchment tool. She had also been essayed after death by some kind of wooden block. It was a brutal murder that could only have been performed by a very sadistic individual. In 2015, the Lady of the Dunes would make national headlines again when Stephen King's son Joe Hill noticed a woman in the movie Jaws that he felt could have been the Lady of the Dunes. Jaws was filmed around 100 miles from where her body was found and right before her death. This lady was an extra in the movie and appeared to look like the sketch that had been done of the Lady of the Dunes. And she was also wearing a blue bandana and jeans comparable to the items that were found at the crime scene under the victim's head. If it was the Lady of the Dunes, it may never be known because the movie did not record the name of the extras. This brings us back to 2022 and the final identity of Ruth. Authorities used genetic genealogy to identify her and learned Ruth Marie Terry was a mom originally from Tennessee. She was born in Tennessee in 1936, but she had ties to California, Massachusetts, and Michigan. Massachusetts authorities released more names she may have been known by: Terry Marie Vizina, Terry M. Vizina, and Terry Shannon. They also released the name of the man they said she married just months before her July 1974 killing. And oddly enough, he also went by multiple names: Guy Rockwell Muldaven, also known as Raoul Guy Rockwell and Guy Muldaven Rockwell. He will get called Guy when we refer to him on this video. Ruth's family said that Ruth had come home just a few months before she was murdered, and apparently they had met Guy. Guy's obituary says that he was born in Santa Fe, New Mexico on October 26, 1923, but there are other records which show his birth location being in New York. He was adopted, and his father had been born in Poland, and his mother was born in Brooklyn, but they both died in California. His adoptive family were wealthy, and he lived a very privileged life. Guy traveled with his family to Cuba, Germany, Italy, and France from 1925 through the early 1930s. Guy was schooled by private tutors in New York at the Academy of Dramatic Arts, and his family owned a cattle ranch in New Mexico. So not many kids can say they've done all that and went all those places as a child, so he was extremely privileged. Guy worked a number of jobs throughout his life. He worked as a professor, a line cook at one of his father-in-law's restaurants, a disc jockey, and as an antique dealer. Also an artist, and he was a buyer with bullocks. He did join the military, but was disqualified from active service due to mastoid infection. Interesting enough, Ruth was hit in the head with a military tool, remember? On May 11, 1946, he worked as a professor. He married Joellen May Loop, a beauty pageant contestant and model in Pennsylvania. The couple lived in New York, California, and then in Seattle, Washington, where he worked as a disc jockey. The couple divorced on July 16, 1956, after 10 years of marriage. 2 years later, Guy married Manzanita Eileen Ryan, or Manzi, as she was sometimes called, on September 30, 1958, in Idaho. Manzi had a daughter from a previous marriage, Dolores Ann Mearns, who was 18 at the time. They moved into Guy's lakeside Seattle home. In his new home, he started an antique shop, which rarely opened its doors before 6 p.m. It was frequented by celebrities and art lovers. Guy was said to have a magnetic personality that attracted people to his shop. His home was 2 stories, so I'm not sure if he had the shop on the bottom half and they lived on the top, which could be what happened. Manzi and her daughter Dolores disappeared on April Fool's Day in 1960, only 2 years after marrying Guy. On July 21st, Guy charged his wife with desertion and he obtained a divorce. A week later, he married his third wife, Evelyn. She was the stepdaughter of socially prominent Miss Caroline Winkler of Seattle. They were reported missing by Manzi's ex-husband, but not until August. Guy promptly borrowed $10,000 from Miss Winkler, his new wife's mom, or his mother-in-law, and he told her he planned to buy antiques in Canada for quick and profitable resale in Seattle. Instead of going north, he went south to San Francisco and took a woman with him named Irene Gregory. Miss Gregory told police she spent August 4th and 5th with him in a San Francisco hotel and then went out on Guy's request to see a doctor. Not sure why she needed the visit to the doctor, but Guy sent her to a doctor that didn't even exist. When she returned to the hotel, Guy was gone. I mean, this guy was apparently a ladies' man. He was married, I think, 5 or 6 times. I'm not sure. I couldn't get that. I think it was 5. But he apparently got around with the women, and the women liked him. This is when it gets grisly. Guy was a prime suspect when they found Manzi and her daughter's body, Dolores, in the septic tank of the couple's home in Seattle, in the antique shop and home they owned. So on August 30th, police searching Guy's home and antique shop noticed fresh concrete ceiling on the septic tank. They broke in. They found human flesh and bones, some of it seared by flames. A pathologist said they were remains of a girl about 16 to 20, and in the Columbia River a few hundred miles from Seattle. Mutilated portions of a human body believed to be that of Manzi were recovered by authorities. After Guy became a suspect of Manzi and Dolores' death, then he was suspected of 2 deaths that happened in 1950. Yeah, I know, 2 more murders are going to be connected to him. The body of 22-year-old bread truck driver Henry Beard was found June 19, 1950 near Table Bluff, a naval radio station in the Fortuna, California area. He had been shot in the back of the head. The body was naked except for shoes and socks. The rest of the clothes were piled neatly nearby. A .32 caliber, the caliber which he had been shot with, was missing from his car. Beard had last been seen the previous Saturday night with Barbara Kelly, 17, a Fortuna waitress. She was not seen again. Her clothes were found piled under Beard's. Oddly enough, the same way in which the Lady of the Dunes clothes were folded and put under her body. When Guy was married to his first wife, he worked for his father-in-law at one of the 2 restaurants in Fortuna, and Barbara Kelly was the waitress of the other restaurant. Guy was never charged with any of the murders that he had been suspected of, but he was arrested by the FBI in Brooklyn, New York in December 1960 and charged with unlawful flight to avoid giving testimony relating to mutilation of human remains. And also, he faced larceny charges for swindling money from his mother-in-law. He was convicted in 1961 on those charges and sentenced to no more than 15 years. But in March 1962, a judge suspended the sentence provided he repay the money. Basically, he didn't serve hardly any time for anything he did. Then Guy married Phyllis Roper on October 18, 1975 in Los Angeles. The marriage with Phyllis lasted until Guy's death in 2002 at the age of 78 in New Mexico. This man could have been a serial killer, yet he escaped any form of punishment for victims he could have potentially brutally murdered. One of Guy's friends from California stated that he couldn't believe that Guy could have been capable of murder. He stated that Guy was terrific. They had been really close friends and that he loved him. But stated Guy did not discuss his past, so he knew nothing of his history. And authorities want to know if you have any information about Guy. They're asking you to come forward. Now finally, the Lady of the Dunes will get to go home to her family and get a name on her tombstone. And her family stated that she was loved and that they had even hired an investigator to find her. They were shocked to learn that she had been the Lady of the Dunes. It's just a crazy case, and I hope they officially solve this case. They have Guy as a very strong suspect in her death. And really, there's no telling how many that Guy has actually killed. Right now, it's a potential of 5, but actually, it's probably no telling. It's like he cut his victims up, and he would neatly fold their clothes and put it underneath them. What is the significance of that, I wonder? And maybe eventually we'll learn about at least some of the stuff he did. I don't know if they'll ever find out everything, but this is definitely intriguing news that has come out because the Lady of the Dunes has been a huge mystery forever. And I'm so glad for her family that they finally get to lay her to rest where she belongs. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to bring this forward to you. And I thought it's a very interesting case. And I will continue to follow it. And hopefully there's more breaking news on this pretty soon. And I probably won't record for a few days because I've done 3 real quick ones right in a row. And I'm tired. I'm really tired. I'll probably paint for a few days. Rest up. Build up to be able to do this again. All right. If this is your first time seeing me on here at YouTube, just come back and visit us. Subscribe so you can get notified. I usually do rarely heard crime cases or breaking cases like this. All right, guys. Murder She Said. That's where it's at. Come join me. Love y'all. Bye. Painted nails and a glitterly, I can't say that. Glittery. Worn by a very sadistic. Oh my goodness. Jesus. Get this right. Suck as usual. Sorry, I cannot say Massachusetts very good. It's just a tongue twister to me. I don't know why. That's where the bodies, or one body was found. I'll tell ya. Let me tell you this. My husband came home yesterday from the grocery store. Okay, you guys know I love Cheetos. If you watched any of my other videos, you know I love Cheetos and Dr. Pepper. That's just my thing. He came home from the grocery store with generic Cheetos. Generic Cheetos, guys. I said, 2 things you cannot buy generic is Cheetos and Dr. Pepper. Like, we're not that broke. We're not that broke yet. I know inflation's high and groceries are high, but honey, we're not that broke yet. And I refuse to do generic Cheetos. It's just not the same, if you ask me. Maybe I'm being spoiled. Usually I'm not spoiled, but when it comes to my Cheetos and Dr. Peppers, guess I'm being a brat. I'm gonna go in and film the dogs and let you see them. Look at that face. Look at that face.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution.